Hey everyone, my name is Melanie Castrucci, and I've been a doTERRA wellness advocate since 2015, and I've been building a doTERRA business since 2016, which is the absolute best business ever, which I'm sure you know, or you may know. When Teresa asked me to share my adaptive story along with some facts about this amazing system, I was completely delighted, and I'm really excited to be here to share that with you. So, I'd like to start with how adaptive has impacted my life and then talk about the oil blend and then move on to the capsule and why this system and those products are so amazing. And then we'll even finish off with a little bit of science and a review of doTERRA's clinical trial. My journey with adaptive began last year when doTERRA released this system at the Global Convention, which, by the way, if you haven't been, is the absolute most inspiring, uplifting, informative event you will ever attend. So I do highly recommend putting that on your bucket list if it's something you haven't done. And in all honesty, when they introduced this system, I wasn't that excited about it because it was introduced as a system to help people who deal with stress. And they mentioned things like first responders. And my life just isn't that stressful. I mean, I have the daily stressors that we all have, but I don't have kids. I have dogs and a cat. So right there, that's one major reason why I don't have as much stress as other people. In fact, it may be the main reason. No offense, but I do want to be a parent, but I do fully enjoy life as a non-parent at the moment. So anyhow, I took my convention kit back to my Airbnb with my girlfriends, and of course, we break out all these fun new products, and the best part of that is opening all your new oils and smelling them, right? So we're passing them around, and when I smelled the adaptive blend, I could actually feel my body react to it. So there was this light, gentle tingle that floated down my body, like a breeze of relaxation, if you will. And I remember that feeling. It was really cool. And so I was intrigued. Plus, it does smell totally amazing, so that doesn't hurt. Now, fast forward a few weeks from convention. Some brilliant person started an adaptive testimonial group, and if you haven't checked that out, I recommend doing that. There are over 18,000 members, and the stories are unbelievable. There are just countless testimonials. It is still active to this day with people sharing how this incredible system has changed their life. And the words game changer are thrown around a lot. So it's really neat to hear all these people talk about their experiences. And it's, like I said, it's still active, but people post about all of these different experiences that they're having every day. So after my personal, short little experience and seeing how everyone was reacting in this group, I had this idea that I would try adaptive for 30 days and track the progress that I was having. So I decided to give it a go with adaptive first as one of the new supplements that came out that year. So I began taking one capsule every single day. And I thought, if nothing else, it's good to be informed about the products that you work with. So I wanted to see how it worked for me. And totally honest, I was not expecting that much. But like I said, it was introduced as something that helped relieve stress. And I really wasn't that stressed on the regular. So it all started with one single capsule every single day for 30 days, which is 1 month supply. And I decided it would be fun to do a video diary to track my progress, start to finish. So I started making short videos every day on YouTube, and they're still there if you're curious. I did get better as I went. And my day 9 video must have been the best because it has like 1,600 views, which I know is probably not super impressive to anyone except me. But that's my most viewed video, so that's super cool. And the most important thing is, even by that time, even by day 9, I had started noticing a difference in the way that I was feeling. And by the end of week 2, I noticed that I was way happier, I was less stressed, I was much nicer as a human being, and I was pretty certain it was the adaptive, but I stopped taking it at the end of the 30 days just to be sure. It took only about 3 days for me to go back to it. The change was so noticeable. I just wasn't as happy. I wasn't as glowy. I wasn't as excited about life. And that magical sparkle, that shimmer in life was gone. So not surprisingly, the day I took the next adaptive capsule, those happy, shiny feelings came back. So I've now been taking one capsule every single day for over 6 months. And I'm not really sure that I would want to go without it. So on top of all of those cool, happy, satisfied with life daily feelings, I also noticed that the stressors that happen on a daily basis, someone cuts you off, or, you don't get something on time, those weren't bothering me as much. And that is really what is at the heart of this system. That is what it's intended to do. And that's why it was presented as something that is great for people who deal with higher levels of stress and anxiety on a daily basis. So, not only are you feeling less of those feelings that you don't want to feel, you're feeling more of the feelings that you do want to be feeling. Okay, so at this point, you might be wondering, why does adaptive work so well? So our emotions are very responsive to our sense of smell. In fact, it's the only sense that connects through two parts of our brain called the amygdala and the hippocampus. I'm sure you've heard of them. The amygdala related to our emotions, and hippocampus related to memory. And our brain is really just this chemical soup, right? It's amazingly intricate, but it's still kind of like clockwork in a lot of ways. So we know if we do certain things, our brain will respond in certain ways. We might not always know why, which is kind of funny, but we know that it will. Okay, so let's have a look at the oil blends. We have a 10 ml roller, which is pre-diluted, and we have a 15 ml undiluted blend. So within each of these bottles is the same oil blend, which is wild orange, lavender, copaiba, spearmint, magnolia, rosemary, neroli, and sweet gum. And doTERRA actually has a great article on their science blog talking about each of these oils and why they chose to include these particular oils in the adaptive system. So check that out if you're interested. What I'll do is just give you a short rundown, kind of the Quill's Notes version of what that says. So wild orange. This is a special oil that both calms and energizes. So if you were to look in something like the Essential Life book, you'll see it listed as having both stimulant and sedative properties. Nature's so cool, right? You're probably also familiar with the fact that pretty much all citrus oils help to uplift our mood. So that's why wild orange is included in the blend. Next is lavender, which I'm sure you know is the most widely used essential oil in the entire world. It's often called the Swiss Army knife of oils because it's so versatile. And doTERRA decided to include this in the blend because there's so much research demonstrating its ability to improve our mood, reduce feelings of anxiousness and stress, and create a restful, calm environment. All right. Next, we have copaiba, one of the most amazing oils in my opinion, and also one that I give to my dog every single day because it has a really high BCP content, which is beta-caryophyllene. And not surprisingly, this is part of the reason that doTERRA chose to include this oil in the blend. The research on BCP shows that it helps us refrain from unhealthy habits, so that's nice. But it's also a powerful antioxidant. It supports our immune system and our respiratory system, which is really neat. And then we have spearmint. So I think this is a really unique choice in this blend, and it's part of what helps give character to this aroma. Now, the clinical trials conducted with spearmint have shown that the main constituent, carvone, is not only uplifting, but also arousing, especially for people who are already engaging in an active lifestyle. So that's a neat little side note. Next, we have Magnolia. Now, this oil not only smells divine, it's one of my favorite. It actually has a higher linalool content than our friend Lavender. And linalool is a really potent ally when you're trying to promote a calm environment. It also supports feelings of relaxation. Now, next we have Rosemary. So this oil also has a really unique composition, and there are a few key constituents that work together to help us feel more alert and focused, while also reducing feelings of stress. You're kind of noticing a theme here, right? More rosemary, please. Neroli. This is such a powerful oil. Now, it comes from a citrus tree, but it's also rich in linalool and linalool acetate, which give it so many of the mood modulating properties that we're looking for when using oils for this purpose, like in the adaptive system. There's also, again, a wealth of clinical research supporting neroli's ability to help us feel calm when we use it aromatically. All right, and finally, doesn't this oil just sound amazing? Sweet gum. Sounds delicious. So this oil has really unique characteristics as well, aside from its smell, and its chemistry that we don't really see anywhere else. It has this piney, florally, and spicy aroma, and it's also used to promote calm and restful environments. So I think for sure you're noticing a trend, and the adaptive essential oil, which comes, like I said, in the 10 ml and the 15 ml, these are meant to be used in conjunction with the adaptive capsule. So moving on to the capsules, as I said, I like to think of these as the foundation for this system. And I look at the oils as the support in the moment as things come up. So now that we know why the oils are so great, let's look at the ingredients in the capsules and the science behind them, because it's pretty cool. So this stuff honestly blows my mind. And anytime I start really thinking about it or researching it, I become so grateful for the work that doTERRA does, because their work is truly life-changing for so many people, and it really has been for me. So I just want to share that. So there's only a few ingredients in these capsules. There is an essential oil blend, and it's slightly different than what is in the rollers. So the essential oil blend that is in the capsules is lavender, coriander, wild orange, and fennel. Now you can actually look up the product information page, or PIP, and you'll see why these oils were chosen. Part of it is because they are specifically known to provide calming benefits when used internally. So that's what's in here. Now, there's 3 other ingredients. That's it. And that's what makes this such a powerhouse. And I'm so excited to share it with you. Okay, so first we have scaledium, which is also called kanna. And this is a gorgeous succulent that comes from South Africa. Of course, it is sustainably sourced with the support of the indigenous knowledge holders of the region, because doTERRA. That's the only way they do things, right? Now, this plant has a long history of use by the South American tribes. And the way that the effects of this plant are described is alert serenity. Now, if you've used adaptive, I bet you're nodding in agreement, because that is exactly how you feel. At least it's how I feel when I'm using this system. It could not be described more perfectly. Alert serenity. So what this capsule does is it helps support a healthy emotional response to everyday stressors and promotes feelings of happiness, well-being. Check. This is exactly how I would describe the way I feel every day now. And it does this by supporting healthy levels of mood stabilizing hormones, while also improving cognitive functions and combating the occasional nervousness or stress that come up. Okay, so when I started reading into all of these ingredients for the first time, I thought it was really cool that what they were describing as the effects of these ingredients were actually what I was feeling. So if you're interested in looking at the research studies, you can Google each of them And you can find out more. There's all kinds of scientific journals that have published research studies on the 3 ingredients we're going to talk about, scaledium being one of them. And we can sum it up by saying for scaledium that it's a rich source of alkaloids, and it's one of the ways that it affects these changes in our brain. So alkaloids are precursors to the endogenous production of GABA. And what that means is the natural production of GABA in our body. So it supports the production of that naturally in our body, as well as serotonin, which is the happy chemical. Okay, so that brings us to our next ingredient, which is, lo and behold, GABA. So not only does scaledium support the production of GABA in our body, there's actually GABA in the capsule. So GABA is often referred to as the brakes of the brain, and it's found in our diet, believe it or not, in small quantities. So GABA acts like a neurotransmitter in our brain, and it has this natural comforting effect. And it does that by decreasing the neuronal excitability in our brains. So in our central nervous system, it basically moderates the reactions that we have to stress responses. So it moves our body into a lower gear when we're getting worked up, like the brakes of the brain, right? So you kind of see how that comes into play in the whole stress anxiety equation. So if you're a nerd like me, you can totally look up all of the fascinating research on GABA, as well as GABA and the HPA axis. These are the speeding up and slowing down systems in the brain. You'll see lots and lots of studies on the effectiveness of GABA. And so the presence of GABA slows the brain's stress response system. But when you take GABA away, it actually increases the responsiveness and excitability and stress. So it was really kind of neat to see how that, works both ways. Okay, so scaledium to support alkaloids and support our brain in that way. GABA, slowing down our brain. And then, sorry, I just had this thought. I was like, man, we're pretty amazing creatures, right? Also, as a side note, doTERRA produces GABA through a process of fermentation. I was pretty curious about that when I first started taking it. I thought, where do they get that? So that's how they got that. So I just wanted to share that as well. Okay, so last but not least, the final ingredient in the capsule is called ahi flower. This is another gorgeous little plant, and its seeds contain the richest natural source of omegas that we know about. So that's kind of cool. I think pretty much everyone these days, especially anyone involved in the health and wellness business or industry, knows that omegas are really excellent for supporting the brain, and ahi flower is a much more sustainable source than fish oil. So there's tons of research showing us that omegas support a positive effect on our moods and helps to reduce anxious feelings. It also has a really high bioavailability, which again just means that our bodies can actually utilize what we're taking in. So sometimes when I talk about this still, I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over and over again, right? Seems like kind of all 3 of these ingredients do the same things, and same with the oil blend, right? Like it kind of sounded like they all do the same things. So you might have wondered now or even previously, why do you need all of them? And the best way I can sum this up is with an example. So we eat lots and lots of different fruits and vegetables, right? Hopefully. And we could say, generally speaking, that they all nourish our body. They all provide our body with nutrients, antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, and so on. It's all those things that keep us healthy and support our immune system, and so on and so on. So if we talked about each one individually, like we just have with these ingredients, we'd be saying a lot of the same things over and over again, right? But we still need to eat a wide variety of fruits and vegetables in order to stay healthy. And why is that? Because even though each fruit and vegetable achieves a similar outcome or goal in our body, they all do it in a slightly different way. So the makeup of each of these nutrients in each of these foods is completely different. And our body thrives on diversity, it thrives on variation. And we need that diversity and broad spectrum to stay optimally healthy. It's the exact same way with the ingredients in these products. They all have the same goal of keeping us calm and happy and healthy, helping us feel good about ourselves and our lives every single day. At least that's been my experience. So they all achieve that goal in slightly different ways. And that's good news for us as humans who all have slightly different bodies, slightly different chemistries and makeup. And that's probably why so many people have been having so much success with this system. So I hope I did a good job of breaking that down for you in a way that made sense. And I know sometimes I ramble a little bit, so please forgive me if that was the case. So before we part, I want to touch briefly on the clinical study that doTERRA completed prior to releasing the system last year, because it's pretty cool. So true to form, doTERRA completed a 2-part clinical study that was what we would consider the gold standard in terms of scientific research. It was double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled, like the absolute gold standard. It just doesn't get any better than the format that they chose, which means ultimately that the results are reliable. So I hope I remember this correctly. It's been a while since I watched Nicole present these findings, but I think I've got the hang of it, and the studies haven't been published yet, so I'm going to do my best. In the first part of the study, they had volunteers in a room complete tasks while adaptive was diffusing. Okay, so that was just the first part. And in the second part, they actually created super stressful conditions. They told the participants that they were going to take this test and it was going to be really hard, and their performance was really important, and they put a clock on the wall and told them that it would be timed, So they did everything they reasonably could to create stressful conditions for their participants. And then they, I believe they still had adaptive diffusing in the room that time. I don't believe this had to do with the adaptive capsules. But yeah, I think it was just diffusing the adaptive. So here's what happened. The participants in the group who were in the room with adaptive diffusing, they actually had lower heart rates while taking the test compared to the group who didn't have adaptive diffusing while they were taking the test. And even cooler, they reported lower feelings of stress on the self-report measures when they were in the adaptive control group. So the group in the adaptive room actually felt less stressed than the people who didn't have the adaptive diffusing. So doTERRA found physiological, the heart rate, physiological evidence, and they found subjective reports that people felt less stressed. Okay, so one last really cool thing that I just thought of. The participants who had the adaptive diffusing actually remembered the smell from the first half of the study. And they mentioned it in like the debriefing step, which I thought was really neat. And that probably doesn't surprise you if you use doTERRA, because they're amazing and they smell incredible. But I thought that was really neat, and it was something that Nicole took the time to point out. So just passing that along. Okay, so guys, that's it. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, for allowing me to share my heart and my mind with you. I really appreciate it. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure, and I wish you all the best.